return, Internet. The GM said that The Last of Us is the greatest writing ever known to man, and we all had to slap the shit out of him a little bit, so he's recovering for the time being, so session's canceled, because
I will fucking kill you.
Just talking too much smack.
Fucking end you. Bruh.
He also said the Dritz to Word and books are trash. Terrible writing, so, you know.
Wow. I mean, that you're attacking Matt on that one. That's fine with me.
Honestly, I can't speak. I haven't read them at all, so, you know. I'm just taking pot shots on that one.
He really wanted me to read them while I was in New York. I'll probably get around to it.
Bro, there's 3,500 books. I don't.
Yeah, there's like 37.
There's so many, dog. Dritz to Word has been around the block. I don't. It's too much. It's One Piece levels of nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, sorry, One Piece fans, it's not happening. That's just too much. I'm sorry. Like, unless I get it confirmed, it's over. Like, it finishes, and then for some reason I'm like, you know what? I need a project for the next year. Then maybe. That's the only scenario, but probably not. Anyway, we're not here to talk about anime, although we do seem to bring it up a lot.
We do. That being said, the character I was talking about, Octopus guy, his name is Yoshida.
Okay. Got it.
And I told you, it was about as expected as you thought it'd be.
Yeah. That's going to make no sense to anyone listening. We were talking about something else prior to that. Isaiah is just finishing a thought that he didn't finish before.
This is my emergent
gameplay. I don't even remember what we were talking about, but boy, was I fucking excited when I remembered what I was trying to say there.
I was gonna get really hyped, but I heard his name was Yoshida, but I was like, I'm gonna keep it chill.
That's fair. Anyway, tabletop games. # we play them.
We do from time to time.
Probably more than we should, to be honest. But you know, it's fine.
Nah, it's fine.
It's whatever. Listen, we could have worse hobbies like alcoholism or crack or something. I don't know.
Okay, so here's the thing. I say that shit all the time.
Say what shit all the time?
You know, like people are like, oh, like, is this what you do? Like every week you play this game for like 4 hours.
Yeah.
Every Tuesday and Thursday. I'm like, what would you rather I do? Fucking drugs?
Yeah.
Like
exactly.
Oh, you know. I gotta know what you want me to say, bro. Like,
listen, it's not like going out to the bar and drinking a shitload every fucking week is that much more productive. All right, let's not split hairs.
I am having as much, if not more, fun at a fraction of the price.
Yeah, and without the health effects.
True.
So, you know. Anyway, not to get into the whole people judging each other's hobbies, but definitely there are certain people where I'm like, bro, you do not have a leg to stand on.
Mm-hmm.
But everyone who's listening to this, however, obviously is on our side. So, tabletop things. Before we do that, of course, take a moment, say hello to Jesus, and press follow or subscribe on your podcast platform of choice. Jesus would be a fan. I think. What?
Okay.
What? Why what?
Why say hello to Jesus?
I don't know. Say what's up to your homeboy Jesus.
Hey, yo, Big JC.
Yo, Big J. That's what I'm saying. Look. Jesus is the homie. Listen, the crazy preachers and everything. I don't like them, but Jesus was a homie, given all historical information we have on him. So,
my mom listens to the podcast. Please don't get for more ammo to use against me.
I'm saying I like Jesus. I'm pro Jesus.
Say that?
I'm pro Jesus the guy.
You say that, and the next time my mom's gonna call me, she's like, "So Josh said he really likes Jesus. I think you should come to church with me."
Okay, well maybe not like that. Maybe not like that.
No, I'll go to church with her, but I'm gonna be dressed up as fucking Ozzy Osbourne from Brutal Legend.
Oh my god.
Yep.
That'd be a choice.
Look, I have to torture her in whatever way I can.
Right, of course. Anyway, we could do this. We could do this. Stay on task. Listen, this episode's gonna be a little rambly anyway, because the thought I have here is not even a fully formed, coherent thought, really. So like, I'm not really 100% sure where we're gonna go, but we're gonna go somewhere. I don't even know.
Those are the best episodes.
I don't even know what the title's gonna be. It's gonna be something. There is gonna be text attached to this video / audio
And a thumbnail.
But
with
I
assets.
have no fucking clue what any of that shit's gonna be or look like. So here we go.
I know, I got it. It should just be Quan Chi from Chainsaw Man in a picture of Jesus next to it.
We can't bring in a conversation from before we hit record.
And yet, people will watch the video just to know why the thumbnail looks like that.
Wow, what a diabolical turn of events. I need to know why Jesus and Quan Chi from Chainsaw Man are related here. They're not, as it turns out.
Oh my god.
But anyway.
You know what's crazy? In the realm of Chainsaw Man, the Jesus devil has to exist because some people are afraid of religion intrinsically, which would create a devil who probably looks and acts like Jesus, considering that there's an angel devil who is actually really just a homie as much as he's a tsundere and hates being a homie.
I feel like the Jesus devil wouldn't be that powerful though. I don't know that there's enough of like an energy of fear around him, you know?
I don't know. Tell that to the plague devil, which is a thing that exists, and why that one's still really strong despite it not being that relevant anymore.
Well, it's not relevant, but the fear of plagues is still a relevant thing. Like the fear of a plague happening. True.
I don't know. The fear of religious persecution, I feel like, is a pretty powerful thing.
That's not a fear of Jesus, though. That's different. That would be a different devil. Oh my god.
There is a character in part 2 who has a contract with the STD devil, and it is as funny as it sounds.
Oh, that's horrifying.
It's
I hate that you said
the funniest thing on the planet.
Anyway, we can do this. We can do this. Focus. I can't now. I'm losing it. I can't. You've broken me.
I'm just here to instill chaos. I don't really know what we're talking about today. I'm just here for vibes.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the thing, right? I don't even totally. Okay, so. Okay, let me give. I guess I give the backstory here just to try and make it make sense, because I'm not even really sure exactly what I'm trying to say. I'm making an observation. I'm having a thought, but that's about as far as we're getting here. Okay, so like, we've been playing Fabula for a minute, right? We've been playing
About a year.
That sounds about right. We're at like 29 sessions, I want to say, or something like that. So a while. And you know, in my personal opinion, yeah, I've talked about it before. The 30 session campaign is a good number. Now, granted, we're going to go beyond 30 sessions for sure with Fabula, but like, you know, I've talked about that being a good number, and I think
I was gonna say, if you pull an ant on us, I'm gonna lose it.
Just pull the plug at session 30.
Like, hey guys, so next week is the last session of this campaign. It's been fun. We're like, whoa, what?
As funny as that would be, no, I would not be doing that given the current situation.
Sorry, we're sidetracked. We're tangenting.
Yeah.
In Ant's campaign, one of our players was Siffy, and she was like never happy with the way her character was built. She just didn't feel like she was having as much fun as she could have. He spent like a full 4 hours talking with her, respecking her character, doing all the stuff she wants, and then the next session was like, campaign's over, y'all.
Oh, that's a little rough.
Yep. Yeah. I was like, why would you do her like that?
Why would you bully her like that? Yeah.
It's such a dickhead move.
It's a little bit of a dick move, yeah. Yikes. Anyway.
And I know you listen to this. Why? Why are you like that, bro? What the fuck?
Damn, the call out's crazy.
No, because even if he's not listening to this, Moon is listening to it. So either you call him out or I'm calling his out right the fuck here.
That's crazy.
I'm here for violence.
Yeah, I guess so. Anyway, so yeah, we're at the 29 sessions, which, like I've said, I like the 30-second session range. It's a good one. Also, Emmanuel himself has said a 30-session Fabula campaign is a good length, so I have backup validation on that one. And so, like, you know, after at the point of playing a game for 30 sessions, I feel like most of the time, I'm sure there's probably some games out there where you could take exception with this, but I feel like after 30 sessions, you've kind of moved on into a more advanced understanding. You have a firmer grasp on whatever game you're running, right? Like, you're not constantly rules checking basic shit. Like, you're in the flow. You can, like, make calls on the fly with, like, confidence. You know, like, you're at the point where you're like, yes, I understand this game pretty, like, on a decently deep level. And so we've hit that point with Fabula where I'm like, yes, I now have this idea. Like, I get this game's vibe. I get what we're doing here. And I had this realization that I've sort of started looking at the game, like I've started re-looking at the game. I've started rereading chunks of the book. I've sort of started looking at it with fresh eyes because I've now run it for a while. So I have a good grasp on the core. And once I had that grasp on the core, I was kind of like, all right, where can I push? Like, what can I do that's a little more interesting? Where can I, like, advance along the edges? You know what I mean? And that's kind of the observation I'm talking about. This idea of getting into the more advanced play with your system of choice and just what that looks like. Again, I don't really have a strong thesis statement here. I'm just kind of like, it's an interesting observation I made about, like, A, my own habits, but B, like, I think habits I've also noticed from other people and, like, people talking about games they're running online and shit like that. So I call my first little chunk here. So you've been playing for a while. I feel like every GM, after playing a system for a while, will hit the point where they're ready to advance to more complex elements of the system that they are using. Now, depending on your system of choice, this could mean a bunch of different things. In something like D&D, for example, there can be new mechanics that start to get introduced in the later levels of play, such as legendary actions. But that's not necessarily what I want to focus on with this particular discussion. The focus here is more about the idea of looking at the system you're running with fresh eyes because you started to understand it more deeply. Right? So that's kind of the, like, thesis statement premise of the whole thing. Is that making sense? Let's start there. Okay.
Deepening your knowledge through recontextualization of the information you already, right?
I don't even know if recontextualizing so much as just, like, getting it better and thus being able to do more advanced shit because you understand it better. Like, have you done this? Like, can you think of it, like, does this resonate? Like, yes, this is like a mindset or a thing I've done.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely at that point in Lancer where I played it enough, I understand it enough that I can start doing more interesting things and some more nuanced things in the confines of combat, like figuring out how to mix mash monsters or, you know, enemy stat blocks in a way that doesn't completely cripple the game, which can sort of deepen the depth of the player's experience.
Yeah, without crippling the game. That's a big one.
Yeah.
That's a thing you could definitely also do in Fabula, where you could just overtune things to the point of, like, stalling out everything. Yeah, it's like this idea, right? There's this thing in art broadly, like creative endeavors in general, where there's the idea that you always want to revisit fundamentals, and the reason that you revisit is because after you've been doing the thing for a while, like let's just go with drawing as the example here, but I think this could apply to, writing or directing or fucking photography. Like I think you apply all sorts of places. It's like after you've been drawing for a while, it's good to always like reassess your fundamentals. So like you've learned your anatomy, but it's always good to go back and like relearn your anatomy. And it's because it's the idea that you have a more advanced knowledge of the entire field, the entire hobby, the entire practice. So by reassessing those earlier fundamentals with your more advanced knowledge, you will then, it's like you have to go backward to go forward. It's like reassessing that old stuff with better knowledge will then unlock a whole nother level that you couldn't have hit without doing that first, without going, like you couldn't have hit. All right, here, let's do a little video game analogy to really hammer the whole point home. Imagine if a game had
a sex analogy.
I could probably figure out a sex analogy, but it would take me a minute. But like, if you imagine like a leveling up system, right? Imagine if a game had you say like, okay, to get to level, so you get from levels 1 to 10, and that is like a mostly linear journey of like going up, gaining XP as you do. Once you hit level 10, the game says to you, okay, you now need to go back and redo the challenges that you did at like level 1, 2, and 3 in order to then hit level 11. Like the game locks you out of level 11 until you go back to previous stuff and redo some kind of challenge mode now that you understand the game better, right? It's kind of like how Devil May Cry is like, you have to play through the game on Devil Hunter before you can go back and do Son of Sparta, and you have to do Son of Sparta from level 1 all the way back up, right? You can't like jump around or anything.
Yeah.
And it's like, you now have a more intrinsic advanced understanding. Now you're going to go back to your fundamentals and start kind of from the beginning. Not exactly from the beginning, because you still have like the knowledge and the skill set, but kind of from the beginning. And we're going to throw bigger shit at you, more complicated shit at you, because you have that understanding. It's like that sort of idea. And, the thing that I think, I guess the interesting bit in a tabletop context is that I think as a GM, you do this all the time. I don't know if people necessarily think about it in this way, but I definitely feel like this applies to GMing pretty one-to-one. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, look, ultimately, whether people make fun of you for it or not, GMing is a hobby that requires practice and skilling. What was I trying to say there? Skill practice. We'll just go with the word practice works.
Yeah. I was gonna say skill development. Maybe
that's what I was going for. I don't know. The word got really lost on my tongue there. And so like, yeah, I guess I'm observing that I'm doing that right now, Fabula. And I've definitely done this before, but it's feeling slightly more conscious this time for some reason.
Now, when you say this time, do you mean this time in general, like across all of your GM experience, or this time as in, well, I'm not really sure what I'd be asking after that point.
Yes, this time in general GMing experience. Like, I've definitely done this before. I don't see how I could have not done this before, but it feels a little more at front of mind with this campaign for whatever reason. And maybe that's because my initial running of Fabula, I kind of started rocky. So the fact that I'm now sort of hitting that advanced stage and then going back and reassessing those fundamentals of the game, I'm noticing that more because I felt that initial rockiness. So I guess what I'm saying is the bettering of the skill is more apparent. I'm seeing the progress more clearly, I guess is what I'm saying. It's kind of like that thing where when you do something like, I don't know, you play a sport for the first time and you're like decently good at it right from the jump. And because you're kind of good at it right from the jump, you can't explain it particularly well to somebody else, and you can't assess how you understand or like how you learned it very well because you just kind of got it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like when I first started to learn to draw, like with any seriousness, I never was intimidated by hair, right? I always just thought like hair was kind of an interesting thing to draw. So like I kind of figured out how to do it pretty successfully, like pretty quickly. But then subsequently, anytime anyone's tried to ask me how exactly to do hair, I don't have a good answer. I don't fully know how to explain it. And I think it's because I had a relatively smooth road in the beginning, so I can't articulate what the road bumps will be because I kind of skipped over. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, there's something to be said about it just clicks.
Yeah, like it just clicks, and then when it clicks, it's like you're a bad teacher because you can't really explain the struggle bits.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've definitely been there with certain things. I don't necessarily know why or how, but there are things that have just clicked for me.
Yeah,
like actually, no, I'll give you a great example that works in the confines of what we're talking about. Improv for me just clicks. You know what I mean? Like, people are like, oh, I don't know how you can bounce ideas so quickly. I don't really know. It's never been something I've struggled with. It's always been something I found relatively easy. But, you know, other than the really generic basic bitch advice that everyone gets when it's improv is just like, right, you know, don't worry about saying the wrong thing or just say yes and, like, just keep the rhythm going. Right. I don't know why I particularly don't struggle with this when I know that it's not an easy skill.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like if you don't struggle with the thing, you're less cognizant of the journey of the improvement. So I think what I'm getting at, to like bring it back around to GMing, I think because I had that initial struggle with Fabula, I'm more cognizant of this like advancing and then reassessing fundamentals portion of the learning process. Like it's more upfront in my brain because I had the initial struggle. There's probably been another game where this has been the case, but this is the one that I don't know. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think like another game. I'm trying to think what the last game I ran that was like, God damn, I'm having a struggle. I mean, kind of 5e a little bit, although I don't think 5e was quite the same kind of struggle. So I don't know if that comparison works. I don't know. Anyway, this is, like I said, this is mostly a conversation / observation kind of point. I don't know if I have anything helpful, or I don't know if I have a helpful point of advice to give in this scenario. Usually I try to go with the angle of advice, but this is mostly coming from a place of me noticing that I'm looking at the current game I'm running, that being Fabula, from a different angle, because after running it for a while, I feel like I have a more firm grasp on how the mechanics flow, and I feel like that pretty much and I feel like pretty much everyone has been through this feeling at some point.
Bro, let me tell you, I spend so much of my time feeling like I'm on Fraud Watch.
Fraud Watch?
I see you're not hip with the new lingo.
Is this has this one passed me by? I don't.
A little bit, yeah.
Am I too unk?
A little bit. No, but like, there's a lot of times where I'm like, where the imposter syndrome just dominates, and I'm like, I'm terrible. I'm worthless. I'm so bad at this. I don't even know why I try anymore.
Oh, in terms of GMing?
Yeah. Constantly.
Yeah.
Constantly does this shit happen to me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not so much talking about the idea of imposter syndrome in this scenario, but imposter syndrome can definitely be related to this feeling for sure. So there can be an overlap there because yeah, like the imposter syndrome can basically, that feeling of imposter syndrome might lead you to reassess because you're like, I don't get it. You know what I mean? Like
all the time.
So yeah, I can kind of get that. It's not quite the same thing, but it is like in a similar vein. I think it's particularly interesting because what I'm now feeling is, okay, I understand the game pretty well at this point. I've managed to make it sing in a couple of ways. And honestly, I didn't come to this realization completely by myself either, because to a certain degree, the bestiary coming out made me reassess some of my train of thought on the game. Like I was already kind of doing it, and then I saw a couple of things in the bestiary that sort of helped me to align my thoughts, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm getting what the game wants me to do now. Like I'm getting it better. And so now I'm in a situation where I'm like, all right, how do I actually push the envelope and make the more advanced elements of the game really work and be interesting? Because, you know, for both for you as a GM, but also for your players, it will get kind of boring if you stick to the safe elements of a game, right? If you keep everything pretty straightforward and a little like, I mean, you could get a little formulaic, really, I think is the main fear, I would say.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, it's the, like, you know, the monster attacking you with a really big to hit bonus isn't like, doesn't stay interesting for a particularly long period of time, right? Like there's a formula to the math and shit. Like you get overly formulaic, and then yeah, like things just peter out. I don't know how else to put it. Like things can peter out. Oh god, I'm on the like stumbling too much right now. In terms of if I've been actually doing anything differently here, in terms of running, I haven't really changed my methodology that much, but instead I have been trying to make more complex moments or mechanics, because I don't need to worry as much about the am I doing it right feeling, right? Once you have that grasp of the core game, the am I doing it right kind of falls to the wayside, which leaves you space to do more complicated mechanics or more complicated just stuff in general in your game. Also, outside of the game, I have been like asking other people for ideas and feedback on my ideas that I've been doing in the game. All in an attempt to make the system really sing for me. While operating within its mechanical bounds, right? Like I've been asking people on the Fabula Discord. I've been doing a Reddit perusing. Obviously, I listen to like tabletop podcasts and shit. You know, all that kit and caboodle. So I've been sort of absorbing that information through other avenues. But in terms of how I'm running the game, this doesn't necessarily change the way you run in any drastic way. It just sort of adds new layers to how you run things. I don't know. Do you have an example yourself before I continue? Where you feel
ask
like
the question again?
I guess I didn't. I guess I didn't really ask a question.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like give me the thesis on this.
Oh, violent sneeze. Hold on.
Yeah. Oh, ow! Your chest hurts, don't it?
A little bit on that one. Ow. So like, the idea of, I understand this game. I understand the core of this game more deeply. I am now pushing into what I'm calling the advanced stages of the game. So by moving into that advanced stage, I'm going to try and come up with a more complicated mechanic for a particular event or something in the game. I'm saying, can you think of personal examples where that's come up?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm doing it right now, actually.
Okay.
So, way too far from my mic. I'm doing like a tournament arc for my players right now, and I'm trying to really emulate the feel of a tournament arc, up to and including like sitting in the stands, watching the drama, having a team that you root for. But a big part of the tournament arc is all the shit going on outside of the fighting.
Right.
So in between matches in the tournament arc, I'm giving players access to some like limited downtime actions. Like scramble to get an extra core bonus to use their their mech super abilities again, or maybe they have to throw their tank out for another fight, so now they need more repair points. So I'm sort of miniaturizing the mechanic and inserting it mid-mission to see how the players react to a more wood chippery action.
Wood chippery?
I'm not pulling any punches on and I usually don't, but I'm like really not pulling punches on them right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have this ability to be like, oh well, we put Cloak in the stagnation, the tankiest mech in the party. We put them out 2 fights in a row. Higher chance that mech could just die. And if they lose their tank in round 2 when there's 4 rounds of the tournament, that could be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But again, given that they can actively try to repair the mech and get more repair ability for the mech, I can be a little more mean.
Right. So that's pretty much what I'm talking about. You're pushing the outer bounds of the mechanics because you're feeling like I have enough of an understanding that I know where I can push on the edges of the game without it completely breaking. Because hypothetically, what you're talking about, you could have done something like that in, session number 10, right? But if you're not as confident in your understanding of the math of the game and the action economy and the, how much healing your players have, and like all those little things, if you don't understand those as well, then you might push along the edges and just break things completely. And that's really what I'm talking about, is pushing on those edges without things breaking. Right? Like the idea of, on a basic level, on a simple example, if you understand how much, if you have a good grasp, and it doesn't have to be like it doesn't have to be an amazingly perfect understanding, right? But if you have a decently good grasp on how much health your players have, how much healing they can usually do in a turn, and how much damage they can usually do in a turn, then you have a better chance of throwing out big, oh fuck, oh no, oh god type abilities without completely breaking the game, right? If you're not confident in how much healing your players can potentially output, and then you throw a big move at them, like a big ability from an enemy, and then turns out, oh, they didn't actually have enough healing to be able to push through a round after that big hit, then you're in trouble, right? Because, oh, I thought they could deal with this, but they can't. But if you've been running the game for a while, you probably do have a decent idea of what that math looks like. Ergo, you can hit them really hard. For, to simplify it for the sake of example, if you know your players can heal themselves for roughly 50 HP a round, then you can hit them with a move that does 40 HP worth of damage, and they'll be okay, right?
Yeah.
Like, they'll be able to push beyond that. That's kind of what I'm talking about. That idea of, that's really what I'm getting at. That idea of I understand it now more intrinsically, so I can take the fundamental stuff that I was doing and go out from my safety zone, push beyond my comfort area. Right, and Fabula is actually a pretty good example of this, because in the beginning of Fabula, I didn't understand how swingy player HP can be in that game, and like the potential to go up and down as much as you do in that game. And because I didn't understand that, I would be hesitant to launch like huge single attacks or consistently, smack like I'm trying to think of like a good example that actually occurred, but thinking on the fly, I'm probably not going to come up with anything. But like, I would be hesitant to throw out a certain degree of damage or a certain frequency of attacks, because I was like, oh, if I do this attack X amount of times in a round, they're not going to be able to survive. And that's because my brain was sort of in that D&D headspace. But in Fabula, the healing is much more reliable on a round-to-round basis. It doesn't have the same philosophy in terms of how healing works like 5e does. So, no, I actually can hammer players pretty consistently, and they can pretty consistently get out of it. So now, when you guys as players, if I throw something at you and I see, oh, everyone's really low on health, I don't stress it the way I used to, because I'm like, well, I know they have this tool and they have this tool and they have this tool, and this mechanic works this way. They'll be fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think, you tapped on something interesting is, you have the information, that we can handle it, but you also don't have that stress if we don't handle it, right? Because that's what I'm dealing with right now, right? Like I just said, I'm not pulling punches at my players. If they don't play smart, they won't win, right? I'm not going to hand them a W.
Right.
But I'm not stressing out about it because I've given them the tools and they have the information and the experience.
Right.
To play well.
Yeah. That the necessary equipment is present. Yeah. Like, and if the win is possible.
Yeah. And if they just don't play smart, that's not my fault. You know what I mean? Like, that's not something I have to worry about as much.
Right. Yeah, it's that comfort of, I know the flow that this game expects, ergo I can push when I want to push, and I can pull back when I want to pull back, and I can do it more successfully now than I could at first, because I've hit that more advanced echelon of play. And now that once I've hit that more advanced echelon, I'm also reassessing my quote unquote fundamentals, which in my case for Fabula literally means I've been quite literally rereading the book. Not the whole book, but I've been rereading chunks and bits that I'm like, what about this? Maybe I should reassess what it says here. Maybe that'll give me an idea, The thing that is also kind of fun about that space, this advanced play, if you will, is you can stress your players better, right? You can put the needle to them a little bit more than you could before without completely upending things, right? Because when you're first starting a campaign, especially if you're playing a new system, you could just be like, I don't know, like, again, just to use D&D, you're going to be like, I don't know, the characters are level 1. I'll just throw a fireball at them. They'll be fine. And it's like, well, no, the fireball will actually probably break them, right? Like, that's probably too much. Yeah. But as you get later in the game, you might look at it and go, okay, they're level 10. I can throw reliably maybe 3 fireballs at them, and they'll sweat, but they'll be fine. Right? Like that kind of a thing where the ability to know where the bounds are, where the edges are, lets you push up against the edges closer, and that lets you stress your players out just a little bit more. And if you stress your players out just a little bit more, then the tension's just that much better.
Mm-hmm. I think Jacob from XP to Level 3 put it the best, which is, you're not trying to beat your players. You're trying to make the players think you're trying to beat your players.
Yeah. The feeling of like you're trying to beat them into the ground.
Yeah. And like, even if they aren't actually in that much danger, because you've mathematically been like, all right, well, they can reasonably eat 40 damage around every round for 4 rounds, and then they'll start running low on resources. You have that information.
Yeah. You have that.
But they don't know that you're thinking about that.
Right. They don't know you're doing the math in your head, or that you did the math prior, maybe. Depending on the situation. It's I forget where. I wonder if I might be able to pull it up if I'm quick with it. But somewhere in the bestiary, it was a similar thing where the book was basically like, the point of the game is not to just beat your players, because if you as the GM wanted, you could just give a monster an ability where, every time this monster gets attacked, it deals 999 damage to the person who attacked it. Like, technically, rules as written in Fabula, that's completely allowed for you as the GM to do, right? You can make an ability like that. That's allowed. But that isn't the point, right? Here we go. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The NPC creation rules give you a lot of freedom. You could give an enemy a reaction skill, such as, after this creature loses hit points, they deal 9 billion damage to every enemy they can see. And that would technically be allowed. But that's fucking boring. That's not the point, right? So it's not that you want to just beat your players, because if the objective was to beat your players, you could do it in the blink of an eye, right? Because GMing gives you that ultimate power.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally the meme where everyone says it all the time, like, rocks fall from the ceiling, deal 999 damage, everyone dies, right? Like, it's that meme. Obviously, that's not the point. So it's like, yeah, once you've hit that point where you're in this sort of advanced play stage, as I'm now referring to it, okay, if I hit them with 40 damage, they'll be sweating, but they'll probably be okay. If I hit them with 60 damage, they will not be okay. So I'm going to go with the 40. You know what I mean? That's how you have to find that place. And the only way you can find that place is fumbling through the early stages of the game, playing, getting to the late stages of the game where you have a decent grasp, and then reassessing the basics to then know, all right, how does the damage work in this game? And we're just using damage as the example here, but this applies to every mechanic in a game, basically. We're only talking tabletop, but this applies to video games, and like I said, this applies to drawing, and I'm sure it applies to music and writing and all that. Like, this is one of those things that applies to pretty much any hobby. We're using tabletop as the framing device, but it's not necessarily about tabletop, really. I tricked you. I'm just giving you an actual life lesson via tabletop stuff.
Fun. As a great GM will always say, gaslight your players.
Yeah, exactly. Always gaslight. It's a very effective method, is gaslight your players. I do also want to note, for this particular this topic, this idea, some people might think what I mean is using your understanding of a system to start hacking away at it, right? To start homebrewing. But no, what I mean is understanding the system on a deeper level and thus being able to do more interesting things within the system's mechanics, right? I'm really not talking about homebrewing. Homebrewing will and can be born out of this mentality, right? It can be really after you, the way you want to approach homebrewing, or the way I think you should approach homebrewing with the game, is you shouldn't really start homebrewing it until you have reached this advanced stage of play where you have that deeper, more concrete understanding of the game. That is when you should do homebrewing, because doing homebrewing before that can get messy quick. But that's kind of a slightly separate thing. I'm talking about operating within the existing mechanics and using that knowledge to make the existing mechanics really sing for you. To give a sort of basic example, right? In D&D, of course, you have your saving throws. Generally, saving throws are used in response to something like spells or like special enemy attacks. However, after running 5e for a while, you will probably start to notice and realize there's other ways you can apply saving throws to events that they don't typically call for raw or don't come up as often. A very classic example is rolling a deck save to dodge the falling rocks, right? That's not 100, like, it's sort of that's one of those things where it's sort of a rules as intended situation. It's not necessarily rules as written that you roll a deck save to get out of the way from like falling rocks from the ceiling or whatever. But if you've been running 5e for a while, you've interacted with the saving throw mechanic, and at some point you're going to realize like, oh, I can apply this to lots of different places. That can be kind of interesting, especially if I apply it outside of combat, just because it's just another avenue to like stress the players, right? Add a bit of tension.
All right. So I have a little bit of a tangent. Small one. On the topic of the saving throws, I wish that 5th edition put more of the impetus for rolling on players. You know?
How do you mean?
So in the same way that Powered by the Apocalypse is like, you know, oh, I'm going to, oh God, what's the like, I'm just gonna use Monster Hearts. The idea is like, oh yeah, I'm going to lash out physically. Right. Like in the rocks fall thing, I want the barbarian to go, can I make a strength save to catch the boulder as it falls as opposed to dodge it? You know?
I see. You're saying you want D&D to give a little more power, a little more control over how the players directly respond to stuff.
Yeah.
Rather than simply the GM say, roll me this, roll me that. Yeah. I think there's a weird, how do I want to phrase it? There's a bit of an argument there, I guess. I don't, maybe argument's not the right word, but there's a thing there where some people are like, no, the game or the GM has to ask for everything, and some people are like, no, the players should be able to state what they're trying to do. That's definitely a debate, a back and forth that's been had, and I don't know. I don't know if I fall on 100% one side or the other. I mean, I guess I prefer a little bit more the Apocalypse World idea there of the players kind of stating how they tackle a problem. I guess that's really what it is, right? The idea of players saying how they tackle a problem rather than just stating, I deal with the problem, and that agency and how the game allows it, right? Because technically, rules as written, if a player attacks with a sword, you roll with your strength to attack. But if the player describes some sort of way, they're like, well, what if I what if I like twirl around the guy and try to quick draw my blade and like stab him in the back quietly? Like, can I roll dex for that? You know, like rules as written, no, but you know, maybe a GM could kind of be like, well, if you describe kind of your approach, maybe, you know, yeah, it would be interesting for 5e to give room for that. It's just not that kind of a game, I think, is the problem.
Well, so my rebuttal is that it can be. And players want it to be.
It can
like,
be.
More often than not, players want that. Because you get the aforementioned example of, oh, well, actually, can I try this thing? And then you go, well, no, not really. So, like, it's a situation, we both agree, 5th edition puts way too much onus on the GM to have answers for fucking everything and not enough tools for the players to make those conclusions on their own, right?
I think 5th edition puts too much onus on the GM for a lot of fucking things.
Yeah, right. Agreed. So, rather, if the game just straight up told the players,
describe your approach.
Describe your approach. And this would absolutely fundamentally shift the balance on the saving throws.
It would, yeah. It might be a bad. It would certainly shift things up. I don't know if it'd be good or bad, but it would certainly shift things up.
Well, so like for monster stat blocks, you can keep those the way they're supposed to be, right? Dragon's Fire will always do a dex. That's fine. But outside of that, a lot of abilities, as we know, you know, it's the dex, wisdom, charisma. But if you made traps something that you could solve with strength or dex, this kind of goes back to give me the Pathfinder fortitude. What is it?
The 3 saving throws. Fortitude, reflex, and willpower saves.
Yeah. Like in a similar vein of like, you can effectively recreate the simplicity of that by giving players options. And obviously, right, in the situation of Rock's Fall, you can't be like, oh, can I fucking try to seduce the boulder? But if you're playing a psionic sorcerer, you're right. Okay, maybe can I do a charisma save to like do the Yoda force catch of the fucking boulder as it's falling? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, the thing you're asking for is basically how Defy Danger works in Dungeon World.
Yeah.
Because Defy Danger, it says when you act despite an imminent threat or suffer a calamity, say how you deal with it and roll. If you do it, and then it says ... by powering through, roll plus strength. If you do it by getting out of the way or acting fast, roll plus dex. If you do it by enduring, roll plus con. If you do it with quick thinking, roll plus int. So yeah, you're talking about like the Defy Danger style ability. And hear
me out. Because 5th edition thinks it's so fucking clever with its dynamic difficulty system. You can just tell players, okay, this is a situation where maybe you can't conjure up enough of your internal abilities to use the force on the boulder. It's falling fast enough. So maybe the skill check's a little bit higher for you. Or, you know, maybe it's something where you're dodging incoming arrow fire. Okay, well, you can use strength to like batter the arrows out of the way. Sure, you're just gonna have a higher roll.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that room is there. You just have to kind of. Well, I don't know. I'd have to think about that more. I'm sure you could kind of slap that onto. Technically, that would be homebrewing 5e, but it's not homebrewing it really that much, right? You're still operating within the bounds of the mechanics. So you're kind of doing what I'm saying, where you're looking at the base mechanics now that you've run the game for a while and going, all right, how can I push and pull these a bit? So yeah, it's within, I mean, it's a sort of mini homebrew because it isn't super rules as written, but it's not so much of a homebrew that it feels like a totally new rule. Yeah, it's I guess that's the kind of funny thing too, is there's often two stages to this thought of, okay, I've hit the advanced play where I can push on the bounds of the rules as is. But then after a while of operating within that advanced space and pushing on the bounds, you're probably going to then naturally roll into homebrewing anyway. But again, I think the best way to get to the homebrewing space is to first operate in this kind of advanced play space. Like, I don't think you should jump straight to the homebrew. Maybe that's more the thesis than anything else. You should live in this advanced play space for as long as you can, as long as it works, until you start to try and push beyond the game or look for a new game or try and do something different, you know?
Yeah. No, 100% agree. I mean, this is a philosophy that I carried over from D&D in the first place, which is, if you want to homebrew something, look around the book. It probably exists already, which will let you remain in the advanced play section as opposed to the straight up homebrew section, right?
Right. Well, and even if it doesn't exist, still trying to just work with the game as is for a while until you really get it, I still think it's more helpful than trying to jump straight to the homebrew. And I mean, you know, ultimately, listen, you can jump to the straight homebrew, right? The cops aren't going to kick your door down or anything, but I just think you'll get better results if you try and go learning game, intermediate at game, advanced game, homebrewing game, right? I feel like that should be the path. I feel like that gets
Ideally,
better
yes.
results. I'm sure there's some people that maybe disagree and say, nah, just fuck it, homebrew whatever you want right from the jump. But, you know,
it's fine. They can be wrong.
It's just something like that.
Well, like, I mean, look, all jokes aside, if you read the book once and you think you're such a master game designer that you can crack that bitch open and start fiddling with what's going on inside with no practical experience, that is like the definition of hubris. And you are just going to make your time and the player's time a lot worse because you're now fighting systems that you don't understand and telling the players to fight systems they don't understand.
Well, the thing that's particularly funny about that too is even people who do fancy themselves particularly masterful game designers, and when I say that, I mean game designers who actively have worked in the industry for years, they will say themselves, you do not know a game until you've played it. Right? Like, the people making the games will say, no, you don't know a game until you've played a game. That's not to say that reading a game and understanding it from just reading it is useless, but the idea that you understand it so well that you can immediately start ripping it apart, it's a little like, I don't know if I'd use the word hubris, but it is definitely a little like you're overestimating your ability for sure.
I don't want to get into a battle of definitions, but it is like definitively speaking hubristic.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. The word hubris sounds mean in this context.
I don't know. It's fine. When were you ever afraid of being mean?
I'm not mean. What do you mean? I don't try to be mean to people.
I don't know, mister. People love me or hate me. It is what it is.
That's not being mean, though. People just find me obnoxious.
Okay, fair enough. When were you ever afraid of being obnoxious?
No, never afraid of being obnoxious. That's fine.
There you go.
But yeah, it is. Even very skilled game designers who have been at it for a long time will not say like, oh, you can just understand a game by reading it. Like they all, and it's not like it's not like I've heard one or two say that. Like they all say that. So yeah, it's a thing. You got to run it to understand it. It just is what it is. I do think too, like also what's kind of interesting about this whole idea is you can fall in love with the game, which I think is really interesting. Like this process of learning the game, running it for a while, getting a little bit comfortable with it, running it for an extended period of time and being quite comfortable with it, and then kind of reassessing what you know about the game from a knowledgeable standpoint to then see if there's anything else you can do, any more interesting angles you could take. It will make you like the game again a lot of the time, because it's almost like you're reading the game with fresh eyes, even though you're not. But it almost kind of feels like that because I don't know how to put it. You're reading the words again from a different frame of mind. You know, it's like the thing where you watch a movie a bunch of times and then you notice little tidbits every time you rewatch it. And by noticing the little tidbits, you kind of get to a point of liking the movie even more than you did before, even though you really liked it on that first watch. You know what I'm saying?
You just described why I watch movies over and over again.
Right. And some people think that's stupid. And I will admit, I'm not somebody who rewatches movies a lot, but I've done it a little bit. And yeah, there's an interesting thing that happens where you're like, oh, I now re-love this thing. Like I loved this thing the first time and now I love it again. And for me personally, looking back at Fabula, going back through the early chapters of the book and talking about some of the mechanics of the game and like in the official Discord and stuff is making me like the game again. Because there was a minute there in the middle where I was like, I'm getting sick of Fabula, I don't want to run it anymore. But then I sort of took this tact of looking at it again with semi-fresh eyes, and it's like, oh, I like it again. You know, it makes it interesting. Again, we're talking about tabletop, but really this applies to so many goddamn things in life, because it's the same. Like you replay a video game, and if it's a game you really like, you're probably going to like it more after you've replayed it because you can appreciate things more about it. And sometimes, this is a little harder with tabletop, I will admit, but sometimes when you reread or rewatch or replay a thing that you maybe didn't like the first time around, the second time around, you might like a lot more. And I'm just thinking of a funny recent example where it took me 3 attempts of playing The Witcher 1 before I actually liked that game. Because my first 2 attempts were kind of rocky. But once I came at it that third time, I really came at it with an attempt to genuinely understand it and like earnestly interact with it. And that made me realize, oh, it's actually quite a good game. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a similar, it's that same headspace we're hitting here. Like it's all that, it's just learn hobby and then relearn hobby and then like hobby even more, because the relearning is this interesting process of I know what I'm doing, but I'm going back to my foundations to reappreciate what I'm doing.
You know what's a perfect example of this?
What?
My relationship with Hero Forge.
Oh.
Because as people who know me, I love using this stupid web browser art app. I've never printed a single model from this fucking website. It's just my art medium that I've chosen to pursue now that I'm out of art school. And the amount of times where I will, you know, like, oh, I do faces pretty well. And then I will go, well, let's see if I can push that. Let me go back and let me try to do faces again, or designing outfits or designing poses. You just kind of go back and go, okay, but can I make this better?
Yeah, it's that same.
Can I push it farther?
Yeah, it's that same. It's the same thing that happens when artists go back and redraw old drawings. You know, Well, they'll be like, oh, I really liked this drawing when I did it initially. Let me like redraw it now and see if I can make it, see how much better I can make it. And then they see how much better they make it. And then obviously they like the redraw version they like, but also they then appreciate the old version more because they can see, it's like you can see the fundamentals that you were grasping at in those early stages. And now that you know those fundamentals, looking back at them, you're like, I was kind of doing this thing well and I was doing that. And like, I was messing up here, but I was getting it here. And it informs the like journey you've made. And again, when you're in this tabletop context, it's not, instead of redrawing something or whatever, you go back, it's like, okay, I tried to do this one fight where I did this mechanic and it didn't quite work the first time. Let me try and do it again now that I know what I'm doing better. And then you do it again and you're like, oh, now this mechanic in this particular fight felt really cool the second time I did it because I had that new angle, that new understanding, that new appreciation. Basically, I guess what I'm really getting at is that this is something you should do if you feel like you're burning out on a game or a campaign, is kind of reassess that fundamentals place that you started at. Like you've hit the high level, you've hit the I know what I'm doing stage. Let me go back to where I started and then see if there's something I didn't truly appreciate that first time around. And then if you do that, good chance you'll feel less burned out on the game because maybe you'll have a new idea or you'll come up with something interesting based on a reread, or you'll miss something that you didn't realize you missed before. Like reading through chunks of the book in Fabula, there have definitely been a couple of little mechanical interactions that I missed the first time around that I didn't realize I was either doing wrong or ignoring. And that made me go, oh, well, that gives me some potential ideas, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it just, yeah, I guess I'm really talking about a way to both, this is a method to both get better at GMing, but also appreciate the GMing you are doing, like reappreciate your own work. And again, it really can apply to a lot of things. It's kind of funny. I remember I had a teacher this was a teacher outside of high school, but I was high school age. I was like, I don't know, 15, 16. And I had a drawing teacher who he was talking about the idea of, I think it was a figure drawing class I was taking in high school. And he, again, taking at high school age, not in my high school. It was an after school program kind of thing. But he was like, the thing that's good about figure drawing is you can always come back to figure drawing and reassess where you're at with figure drawing, and that will almost inevitably, without fail, improve your skills every time you come back to figure drawing, because figure drawing has this really intrinsic fundamental element to it that just, for whatever reason, seems to push people's art skills to the next level. So he was basically saying, when you feel like you're getting a little stuck, like your art isn't going anywhere, go back and do some figure drawing, and that will likely push you past that stuck point. And an analogy he used was, he was mentioning how his daughter was playing a video game where the character has this like shitty knife that they start with at the beginning of the game, and every time you improve the knife, you had to like go back to a previous location and talk to a previous character to take the basic knife and upgrade it. And he's basically saying how going back and doing figure drawing again and reassessing your figure drawing skills is like upgrading your shitty starting weapon to become a better weapon. And I wish I could remember what fucking game it was. In my brain, for some reason, I always associated it with Alice in the Madness Returns, but I don't actually know if that's a thing in that game or not.
No, it is. Yeah, upgrading the Vorpal Blade. Yeah.
Is that what it was? So maybe it was Alice in the Madness, because he was talking about, he was like, you need to go back to this NPC and like do missions for this guy to take this like crappy kitchen knife and make it better. And I'm like, maybe it was Alice in the Madness, but I don't know. But
Very
anyway,
good game, by the way, if you've not played it.
It's funny you say that. I've played a little bit of it. I played it. I played it with an ex-girlfriend for a little bit, and then I never ended up like finishing it or anything. But I probably should. But anyway, that is really the thesis statement here. Is I guess now I am giving advice. Okay, we've hit the advice portion. I said I didn't have advice. Now I'm realizing I do have advice.
Nice.
and the advice is, yes, you should do this thing, which is play the game for a while, run the game for a while, get to the point where you feel like you have a very good grasp of the game, like the core mechanics of the game, and feel like you understand the game on a pretty deep level, and then go back and reassess the fundamentals of the game you are running, and it will likely translate to either you running the game better or you just liking the game more. And that, by extension, will probably lead to other good things down the road, more or less. And whatever reassessing the fundamentals might mean, like, I'm not saying you have to reread the book necessarily, but maybe you just look back at your old notes and try and figure out, like, okay, I tried to do this mechanic with this session. Did that work? Or maybe I should do it a different way. Or maybe asking your players about earlier sessions and how you did X, Y, or Z thing and how they felt about it. Or like reassessing could mean a lot of things, but reassess those early fundamental stages to then give yourself a leg up on the current stages, assuming you give a shit about getting better as a GM.
If you don't give a shit about, don't give a fuck.
Yeah, like, well, I mean, here's the thing, right? If you don't care,
why are you here? But like, fair enough.
Yeah. True. Why are you here? But I'm just saying, this is really about improving your GMing skill. If you are fine where you're at and you're fine just kind of riding, just coasting with your current GMing, then yeah, you don't necessarily need to do this. But yeah, if you do want to, I hate using this phrase, but if you would like to level up your GMing, yeah. It's that reassessment of the fundamentals, I think, really is kind of like a hidden secret in a way. And again, I have applied this particular idea to other things. I've applied this idea to drawing for myself many times. So like, I know it also works in that way. I mean, I've also applied it to video games. I think people do this in video games kind of automatically anyway. They just don't realize they're doing it. You know what I mean?
Likely, yeah.
It's like when you're playing the fucking fighting game and you play for a little while and you figure out your character's like bread and butter combos, and you play ranked for a little while and you climb and you're like, and then you hit a point where you start getting your ass beat again and you're like, all right, let me go back and figure out, like, what are my character's pokes? You know, what can I do at this distance? Like, what are my buttons looking like at these various engagement ranges? And you kind of like look at your basic move set of your character all over again, even though you know it already, but you look at it with this new understanding, and then you get to this greater stage of play. Like, yeah, again, I think people do it a lot in video games, almost automatically.
So let me ask you a question. What do you think the reason is why it feels less common or less intuitive in role-playing games? Because I'm going as far as to say that I think for a lot of people it doesn't feel intuitive.
Yeah, I think it's harder to gauge. It's harder to, what's the word I want? So like when you're playing a video game, right? The game has all sorts of metric metrics and numbers that give you an idea of where you're at, right? Like if we just take ranked, right? If you're playing a fighting game and you get to, you're playing Street Fighter 6 and you get to gold 3, and then once you hit gold 3, you keep getting your ass beat. You'll have a match where you win, a match where you lose, a match where you win, a match where you lose. You'll have 3 matches in a row where you lose, and then 2 matches where you win, and then 3 more where you lose. And that metric of the number going up and down and up and down, and the fact that you're getting locked at this rank is a really good way to gauge where you're at. You're like, okay, I have hit the wall of my current skill set. So if I want to break through this wall, I have to assess what I'm doing wrong to then get to the next level of skill. I think role-playing games lack those clear metrics, so you can't always tell when you're in a rut. You know what I'm saying?
Okay,
like,
interesting.
It's especially, and let's be honest, most people are playing with their friends, right? Or at least people they're kind of friends with. And even if they're doing kind of a bad job, your friends are probably not going to say, they're definitely not going to say you're doing a bad job, right? That's almost certainly
they're not
not
going to say you're trash.
Yeah, like your friends are probably not going to say that to you straight up. Whereas, the guy who just beat your ass in the lobbies 5 times in a row might call you trash. Right? Like he might shit talk your ass. So because your friends are not going to say that to you, you might be in this rut and you might say to them, okay, hey guys, like I'm feeling like the campaign is not going well. How do you guys feel? And they'll be like, no, I think it's fine. And then you're kind of like, okay, that doesn't give me any information to work with. I don't have a gauge, like you don't have a ranking score to look at. You don't have anything to gauge that skill level at. So it becomes unclear. And if you're not getting direct feedback from your friends because they're being nice, which is not their fault. They should be nice. I'm not saying they should be mean to you. But because they're not giving you that direct feedback, you're then in a position of, I don't know where I'm at, and I don't know how to check where I'm at. You don't have anything to look at, and there's nothing to check against. There's no information to assess. It's all very nebulous. Like how do your players feel is not like a hard number. You know what I mean? It's not like there's no math there. So it's hard to notice. And then you might be in a situation where you feel like, oh, I'm not. You might feel like you are personally in a rut, but your players might say, no, I'm having fun. And then you're even more confused because you're like, okay, what I'm feeling isn't matching what they're feeling. Why is that? And then is it a problem? Or am I overthinking it? And then you have to gauge that whole scenario of like, where am I at in that mentality? So I think it's just, I guess, ultimately to summarize what I'm saying, the problem is that running a role-playing game is kind of nebulous. And so the nebulousness of it makes it hard to do that assessment. And because it's hard to do the assessment, it is then hard to do the thing where you go back and reassess your fundamentals because you don't have the initial assessment information. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I don't know, like, what... I don't know if there's a solution to that per se, other than just having a degree of self-awareness and just trying to analyze what you're doing as much as you possibly can and then go from there,
Yeah.
I mean, I will say one thing that I have heard people say online that I do think is helpful is asking your players very direct questions, right? Don't say to your players, are you guys having fun? Or did you like that session, right? Those are really vague, not specific questions that you're probably not going to get helpful answers out of. But saying to your players, did you feel like that boss fight was sufficiently tense? Did you feel like beating that boss was satisfying? Did you feel like the reward for where the story went after this arc was satisfying, right? Like asking more direct questions, I think will help you to bring yourself closer to that self-analysis, to that assessment point. Sometimes an anonymous player survey is the way to go.
I've done those.
I've also done those.
Those are,
there's pros and cons, don't get me wrong.
Yeah. I was going to say.
Sometimes it's the move, though.
It can be, for sure. The biggest issue I've found with the anonymous surveys is that, like, I've gotten both sides of it. I've gotten the people give, like, it's like, okay, I see why you would say that, but that's not helpful to me. That's like a personal complaint you have. Right. Oh God, I'm trying to think of one that I got that I was like, I think one of my players at one point was like, I don't know what we're supposed to be doing. And it was like, I don't know how you don't know that, because I explain it at the start of every session. You know what I mean? Like,
right. Yep.
Like, and that one was twofold unhelpful, because one is like, do you mean you don't know what your character is supposed to be doing? Because that's not an answer I can give you, right? Like, that is
right.
That's where you got to find some agency, fam. But like, if you don't know what we as a party are doing, I really don't know what to say.
Right. I don't know how else to recontextualize it.
Yeah. I to be honest, I think I know who sent that, but I should say I'm almost positive I remember who said that. But yeah.
Yeah, listen, it's not like it's a perfect system or anything, but it can help get you to more direct answers, and then more direct answers can help you to assess your own methodology, you know? Look, no assessment method is perfect, you know what I mean?
No, not at all.
So, it's funny, actually, I was just listening to a podcast about a guy who's a philosopher who wrote a book about gamification and how we've like gamified our lives. And part of the conversation was about how the idea of metrics and numbers are really useful for distilling information and spreading information quickly, but aren't particularly helpful in assessing the value of very nuanced human interaction. And that's kind of what we're getting at here, right? Role-playing games are ultimately very nuanced human interaction, so it is very hard to break them down into numerical assessment. And because it is hard to break them down into numerical assessment, it is hard for you as a GM to also do that self-assessment. But there's ways that you can get a little bit closer ultimately, but it's never going to be a perfect method. You just have to figure out your personal method, which is why this whole time I've been talking about this, I've been trying to not ascribe how you should do this. I'm just saying you should do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this is one of those, there's no,
I'm not going to tell you how.
Perfect answer.
Yeah.
It just kind of depends on who does it.
Yeah, I'm not going to tell you the methodology. I'm just going to say you should try and do it. But how you get there, there's lots of ways you could potentially get there. So, you know, which sometimes I think some people find a little bit frustrating as far as advice goes, because I think people often want the direct how to do it. And sometimes you just that answer just doesn't exist. Sorry.
No, that's me. Like, right? I'm someone. If we're talking about art, when it comes to 2D, something I really struggle with is, and I know, like, kind of a fundamental thing. I really struggle with gradation of value when it comes to color in 2D art, hence why I'm a 3D artist. In 2D, yeah, there are fundamental rules, but a lot of it comes down to just
it's just vibes, bro.
It's vibes and work at it till it succeeds, but that frustrates me because I'm someone who needs like structure, right? Like when it comes to like rendering lighting in a 3D engine, right? It's like, okay, you're not getting the results you want. What do you got right now? Okay. Mess with your exposure. Mess with your passes. Okay, check your diffuse. Like there are literal systems you can watch and fine tune that you can boil down to something close to a science.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist in 2D.
Well, it does to a point. There are actually some very technical based 2D artists that do kind of operate in that space. But it is different and I would say less common. And this is kind of a similar to problem to like when people ask me for like workout advice or like a workout routine. And ultimately, I cannot prescribe to you the perfect routine because I do not live your life. And when you're designing a workout routine for yourself, you need to base it around your life, right? Like your schedule, your existence, your needs, and not everyone has the same needs. And so no one person, you can't just mimic somebody's workout routine and expect it to work for you flawlessly. You're gonna have to make modifications because that's just how it works. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of that idea of I can tell you same thing with diet, right? You cannot ascribe a diet plan that will work for everyone, but what you can do is give people a mentality for how they should go about making a diet plan, and then they can make that diet plan for themselves. That is what is like long-term effective, as opposed to just giving somebody a list of shit to eat. They're not going to stick to that. It's just not going to happen. You know, everyone has their own little opinions and things and like what they want to do versus not want to do and things they're willing to eat, not eat, blah, blah, blah. It's the same thing. So in this context, like I said, the idea of reassessing the fundamentals of the game you are running, what that looks like for you, I cannot tell you how to do that. But what I can tell you is the mentality, the headspace of I should go back and reassess my fundamentals for this game after I have played this game for an extended period of time is a good mentality to be in. And that's kind of I guess that's kind of the final thought. We did kind of get to an actual coherent thought at the end. That's good. Because I didn't think we were gonna. I really wasn't sure. I wasn't 100% sure where I was going with all this. I had a kernel of an idea. I just wasn't sure where to go with it, but we kind of got somewhere.
Man, I'm just happy it's not me for once, because that's usually how I feel, where I'm like, I have an idea, but I don't know how the fuck we're gonna get to the end.
Gonna get to an end point? Yeah. Well, I most got to an end point here, so that's good. Still no clue what a fucking thumbnail or title is gonna look like, but you know what? That's probably future me.
Oh, yeah, brother, good fucking luck.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, expanding intellect meme somewhere in there probably.
Okay, so in there you have to put Quan Chi and Jesus on the branches of the fucking neurons.
No.
But make them like really small.
Really
like you
tiny,
have to like
oddly,
actually be looking at the screen
you have to pay
on
attention.
a desktop to catch it.
Fair enough. Alrighty. If you've sat through all this rambling and nonsense, you owe me $5 right now. Give me the money, bitch. Or I guess you could follow us on social media.
Because they give us the money so we can pay Brett.
Or that too. Links in the description. That's it. That's all I got. Bye-bye.
Yeah, that's all I got. Peace, motherfuckers.